Yes, I'm afraid it's true, and I'm really sorry. After 30 appreciation of our fans who have kept watching in ever increasing numbers around the globe. Because you've years of making Wheeler Dealers, I'm now going to be leaving the show. Wheeler Dealers, you kept watching it, we kept making it, so thank you for that. Making Wheeler Dealers is.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into the shocking story of Ed China. Nobody anticipated it. Ed China was gently assisting viewers with a suspension repair one moment, then the next fans were taken by surprise when Ed was expelled from Wheeler Dealers. He wasn't just a co-host, he was the show's soul. He was serene, brilliant, and subtly charismatic. He introduced mechanical mastery into millions of homes, and his departure felt more like a betrayal than a casting change. Why would someone abandon a beloved, highly successful show at its height? What was so awful behind the scenes that Ed would sacrifice all to realize that you must return to the time when this unusual pair first caused a stir in the automotive industry? It began with a straightforward idea: restoring vintage automobiles, guiding viewers through the process, and providing entertainment. But what Mike Brewer and Ed China unintentionally produced was a genre-defining sensation that would permanently alter car shows. Two men, one garage, a revolution begins. The man who could sweet-talk a price reduction and make it sound like fun was Mike, an experienced presenter with deep roots in the auto industry. He was the deal closer and negotiator. In contrast, Ed was a mysterious, calm, reserved, and towering 6 feet 7 inches man with a mind that functioned like a blueprint, where Mike brought flair and Ed brought finesse together. They were the ideal mismatch. The program was meticulous, and viewers actually learned the changes rather than merely witnessing them. The camera didn't cut away when things got dirty or complicated. Ed explained everything from welding repairs to turbocharger diagnostics in a way that was both educational and oddly soothing. His workshop was like a classroom for anyone who ever dreamed of restoring a car in their own garage. It wasn't just TV, it was a masterclass. For over a decade the formula didn't just work, it thrived. Fans across the globe felt connected not just to the cars but to the unique balance between the hosts. It felt honest, familiar, like you were watching two old friends argue over a carburetor while making magic. But even as the show hit new highs and became a cult hit, quiet tension started to rumble beneath the surface. Whispers of friction, of decisions being made behind closed doors, because as we all know, success comes with a price, and their bill was coming due. What happened next would shake the show to its core. The bigger the show got, the tighter the chains became. The move to America in 2013 wasn't just about cars, it was about expansion: new cars, new culture, and most importantly a new market. It was time to become a worldwide brand because the US loved car content and Wheeler Dealers had already shown it could compete on a global scale. However, that leap attracted the attention of major networks, and with them came the changes that were unavoidable. The production budget increased, the settings became more dazzling, and the stakes increased, but the strain also increased. More executives participated in more meetings. Suddenly, this little UK show transformed from a close-knit garage operation to a corporate boardroom that had to produce, deliver, and amuse according to a strict schedule. The longer repair scenes, which were what made the show unique, began to be cut, and authenticity began to fade. To create space for ad breaks and faster pacing, Ed's in-depth discussions of diagnostics, problem resolution, and ingenious engineering hacks were either cut short or removed completely. The episodes became more about Mike's flashy deals and less about Ed's quiet brilliance. Fans noticed, online forums buzzed, comment sections filled up. They began to ask, where's the detail, where's the how, what happened to the learning? To many in the production world it just seemed like a bit of streamlining standard procedure for American TV formatting, but to Ed China it was a philosophical shift, a slow but undeniable dismantling of the core values that made Wheeler Dealers more than just another car show. It wasn't just about fixing up vehicles, it was about respecting the process and the audience's intelligence. And when the studio tried to push even further, cutting more workshop time, suggesting outsourced labor and Reducing Ed's role to quick sound bites. He knew the line had been crossed. Ed had a decision to make, one that wasn't just about a job but about identity, integrity and everything he believed in as a creator. What he chose next would shock fans, upend the show's future and spark a storm of controversy no one saw coming. Ed China breaks his silence and everything changes. Ed made the news on his own YouTube channel, sitting in front of a camera and addressing the fans personally. It wasn't announced on the show or by the network. Ed stated that the network Velocity, soon to be rebranded as Motor Trend, had plans to further reduce the mechanical segments. They wanted to modernize the show, cut down on the lengthy repair scenes, focus more on entertainment, and crank out episodes faster. To the executives, this made perfect sense. There was no glitzy production, no editing, just Ed and a blank background. The show's core identity would be compromised, the technical depth would disappear, and with it the educational value that had inspired countless aspiring mechanics worldwide. Ed explained that staying would mean pretending to be an expert and watering down the soul of wheeler dealers, so he made the hardest decision of his career and left. Less garage time meant more airtime for flashy deals and audience-friendly drama. The video became viral. Fans were shocked but overwhelmingly supportive in their comments, praising Ed's integrity and calling him a hero for standing his ground. However, as the internet came together in support of Ed, a second narrative emerged that portrayed Mike Brewer as the story's villain. In the eyes of some fans, someone had to be held accountable, and Mike was the most visible target left standing. The accusations ranged from minor to serious, and some even went so far as to say that Mike must have known he didn't stop it, he let Ed take the fall, and he must have been quietly pushing Ed out to appease the network and fit with the new vision. Speculation and emotion drove the concept to spread like wildfire in internet forums and comment sections. Mike publicly denied it, lauded Ed's talent, and wished him the best, but in private he was under siege. In a heartbreaking interview, Mike disclosed that he and his family were being harassed online, with his daughter being threatened and his wife being terrified. Eventually, law enforcement had to intervene to protect them from what had turned into a full-fledged hate campaign, and I had to call the police because the backlash wasn't just digital, it became terrifyingly real. Even though there is no proof that Mike planned Ed's departure, the damage had already been done, and even though Ed remained silent on the subject, never publicly addressing the attacks or defending Mike, the dealer, not the mechanic, stood alone in the storm. Wheeler Dealers was still a global brand and it needed a new mechanic quickly, but who could possibly fill the void left by Ed's departure? Mike said, his voice cracking, someone said they were going to kill me. It was a shocking twist. Can you replace a legend in Ed China's shoes? Ant Anstead's attractive, gregarious, and mechanically talented Ant appeared like the ideal person to fill Ed China's enormous shoes. He was a former police officer who became a car builder. Producers thought that his unique blend of real-world experience behind the wheel and in front of the camera would win over skeptics. For a while, it seemed like the show might actually survive the transition. Ratings remained stable and the format remained intact, at least on the surface, but fans never stopped comparing where Ed had been cool and collected. The chemistry with Mike was good, the projects were solid, the episodes flowed, and they brought charm, efficiency and a fresh dynamic to the screen. Whereas some viewers enjoyed the new tempo and polished visuals that had made Wheeler Dealers feel like a do-it-yourself garage you could learn from, others felt that something was missing. It was turning into a show about cars rather than a show for car lovers. By 2020, Ant stepped away without any major controversy or fiery exit, just another change in the show's evolution. He was also quick, energetic, and always prepared for the camera. Elvis brought warmth and credibility to the workbench with his race team experience and contagious enthusiasm, but despite his genuine abilities and friendly demeanor, the same criticisms persisted. The cars were fantastic, the mechanics were competent, but fans kept asking, where's the heart? The true question was not whether these new hosts were competent at their jobs, but rather whether Wheeler Dealers could ever regain the soul it had lost when Ed China left that garage. As the show looked for its identity and attempted to hit the same lightning twice, Ed was discreetly rebuilding his own world away from the cameras, but it was never forgotten. In 2021, Ed China returned to YouTube, where he had complete control over every frame, rather than television. Ed started Workshop Diaries, a series that reduced everything to its most basic elements, with just a camera, no producers, no schedule constraints, and no corporate meddling. It was Ed's world, his way, free from planned drama, dazzling cuts, and network mandates. Each episode was a deep dive into authentic repairs, experimental builds, and thoughtful explanations from electric conversions to gearbox rebuilds. It was in every sense the spirit of Wheeler Dealers restored. Ed worked on everything from vintage Land Rovers to futuristic prototypes. He didn't just show viewers what he was doing, he explained why, breaking down the logic behind every step. The tone was quiet, personal, and deeply satisfying, and fans starved of that old-school Ed China magic showed up in droves. The comment sections flooded with praise. Longtime viewers said it felt like coming home. The views climbed, the subscribers rolled in, and most importantly, Ed seemed genuinely happy, back in a space where passion and precision led the way, not deadlines and drama. He even revisited iconic vehicles from Wheeler Dealers, cars that never got the full spotlight they deserved on his own channel. He could finally give those builds the love and attention they'd missed, and without commercial breaks or editorial cuts, while Mike Brewer continued to maintain the brand on television by adding new faces and builds. Ed told the entire story the way it was intended to be told. However, as Workshop Diaries grew in popularity, a question began to reverberate among the fan base more loudly and persistently with each upload. What would happen if Mike and Ed ever crossed paths again? Would it be a reunion or a reckoning? Two roads? Years have gone by, and Ed and Mike have at least moved on professionally, but for the fans who followed every engine rebuild, gearbox fix, and humorous incident, the narrative doesn't feel completed, and Mike Brewer is still in the news. Wheeler Dealers have maintained the brand across shifting markets, new formats, and the ever-fluctuating demands of modern television by adjusting to changing periods and switching co-hosts. He has become the face of resilience. Always grinning, constantly going forward, constantly looking for the next bargain. The show may look different, but its engine still runs strong. Ed, meanwhile, has doubled down on integrity. His YouTube channel Workshop Diaries thrives on passion over profit. He doesn't chase trends or tailor content to please advertisers. He builds what he wants, explains what matters, and inspires a generation of gearheads who value authenticity above all else. His audience may be smaller, but they're fiercely loyal, and they trust him to this day. Neither man has publicly addressed the other in depth. No joint interviews, no heartfelt posts, no dramatic reunions, just a long, complicated silence, one that fans continue to read between, a silence filled with possibility and unspoken history. And yet the community keeps asking, could it ever happen? Could they team up one more time for a restoration, a one-off special, or even just a sit-down conversation about what really happened behind the scenes? Because Wheeler Dealers was never just about cars. It was about two men with different minds and the same heart. It was about passion, trust, and the joy of fixing what's broken, not just under the hood but between people too. And maybe, just maybe, the garage door isn't closed for good. Maybe it's just waiting to be opened one last time. So what do you think? Was Ed